there are some things that just sound completely absurd. Like the guy that fell 18,000 feet without a parachute and survived. Or the one about the war that was fought over a run of the mill wooden bucket. And that's just the start, it gets weirder. Here are 20 random facts almost too absurd to be true. Imagine sweating colours like blue, green, or even black. Some people don't need to imagine, they actually do. The condition's called chrome hydrosis. It's where a pigment your body can't break down builds up in the sweat glands and leaks into your sweat, causing it to appear coloured. But it's extremely rare. There's been fewer than 100 or so well-documented cases, so it's not likely you'll be sweating the rainbow anytime soon. In 1904, France was hit by a brutal heatwave that caused grapes to ferment and produce alcohol directly on the vine. Birds ate these grapes and unknowingly got drunk. And the results were as expected. Locals reported birds flying into walls, crashing into trees, and falling straight out of the sky. It became one of the strangest heatwave side effects in recent history, but don't ask the birds to explain it. They don't remember a thing. Scoring a condor is the golfing equivalent of winning the lottery, getting struck by lightning, and being abducted by aliens, all in the same afternoon. Yes, it's that rare. A condor means shooting 4 under par, the equivalent of a hole-in-one on a par 5. It's only been recorded 6 times in history, usually thanks to high altitude, strong tailwinds, and some pretty ballsy shortcuts that will either lead to you snapping your club in half or bragging about how you're the second coming of Tiger Woods. In early Italian opera, it was common to include a Sorbet Aria. This was a short, light-hearted song sung by a minor character that had little or no connection to the main plot. The literal translation is ice cream song. The idea was to give the audience a moment to stretch, socialize, or, funnily enough, buy sorbet. It served the same purpose as the modern day intermission, just with a catchier name. Who needs a parachute when you can fall 18,000 feet without one and survive? That's what happened to US Airman Alan McGee in 1943. He was struck by enemy fire, blasted from his aircraft, and rendered unconscious mid-fall. What came next was what can only be described as a miracle. He crashed through the glass roof of a train station, landed on a snow-covered steel support beam, and because he was unconscious, absorbed the fall without tensing up. It's thought that these 3 factors together were the sole reason he survived. In 1968, Italian engineer Giorgio Rosa wanted freedom from government control. So he did something extreme. He created his own tiny country, calling it the Republic of Rose Island. The 400 square metre platform that took about a decade to build sat just beyond Italy's territorial waters in the Adriatic Sea. It had its own currency, language, and an official flag, 3 red roses on an orange background. But the dream didn't last long. The Italian government saw it as a blatant tax dodge. They rigged the platform with explosives, and the Republic of Rose Island sunk to the bottom of the Adriatic Sea. The popular image of Neanderthals as hunched, brutish creatures is really just a misunderstanding. The first almost complete skeleton, found in France in 1908, was from an elderly man suffering from severe arthritis. His hunched spine and stiff joints led scientists to believe that this was their everyday posture. They managed to misrepresent an entire species. Deep in the Costa Rican jungle lies over 300 massive stone spheres, and to this day, their purpose remains a mystery. Thought to be crafted by the ancient Daqui people more than 1,000 years ago, the spheres range in size from that of a bowling ball to giant 16-ton boulders as wide as a car. And what's more astonishing is their precision. Many are within a 2% margin of a perfect sphere. Not bad for a civilization that didn't have so much as a metal chisel or even the basic concept of geometry. The Oak Island mystery has baffled treasure hunters for over 200 years. In 1795, a boy spotted a strange depression beneath an old oak tree, along with a rope and pulley hanging from a branch. highly unusual and clearly man-made. He started digging and uncovered wooden platforms at regular intervals, and as he dug deeper, the shaft suddenly flooded, triggered by hidden channels connected to the sea. Since then, people have discovered carved stones with odd symbols and a maze of decoy tunnels designed to confuse and collapse. To this day, the Oak Island Money Pit remains one of the most enduring unsolved treasure hunts in history. The transorbital lobotomy. It's easily one of the darkest chapters in modern medicine. In the 1960s, doctors used electroshock to knock patients unconscious. They then stuck an ice pick through the eye socket and tapped it with a hammer to sever connections to the frontal lobe. This is the part of the brain that controls our personality, decision-making, and emotions. And Dr. Walter Freeman, despite not even being a licensed surgeon, performed more than 3,500 of them. He didn't use anesthesia, he wasn't all that fond of sterilizing the equipment, and worst of all, never intended to cure the patients, just to quiet them down. Turns out, our diets aren't as diverse as they may seem. Nearly 3/4 of all the food produced on Earth comes from just 12 plants and 5 animals. There's corn, wheat, and rice, 3 grains that dominate everything from cereal to processed snacks. Add in staples like potatoes and soybeans, and you've already covered most global diets. Makes you wonder what would happen if a new disease wiped out rice or wheat. We'd all be in a bit of trouble. Back in 1395, 2 Italian cities, Modena and Bologna, were locked in a political power struggle that engulfed much of medieval Italy. Tensions were already high, so when a group of Modenese soldiers crossed into enemy territory and stole a wooden bucket from a public well, it was always going to be a bad move. The theft of this everyday, run-of-the-mill wooden pail kicked off what would forever be known as the War of the Oaken Bucket, a war that saw 40,000 troops fight for pride and glory on the battlefield. But it ended up being short-lived, only lasting less than a week. And to this day, the bucket that started it all sits proudly on display at the Ghirlandina Tower in the center of Modena. The ancient Greeks sure could build some scary weapons. So when someone proposed a giant wooden arm that could reach over fortified stone walls guarding the city from the harbour, wrap around an enemy ship, and lift it right out of the water, they thought, yeah, we'll give it a go. And the Claw of Archimedes was terrifying. This monstrous crane-like device operated with ropes, pulleys, and counterweights. It hoisted ships into the air and, without warning, dropped them to crash straight back into the sea. From then on, Roman sailors wouldn't go anywhere near these walls, fearing the machine they're dubbed the Iron Hand. What do you get when you mix lightning and sand? A fulgurite. People also know it as lightning glass. It's what happens when a bolt of lightning reaching temperatures that rival the surface of the sun strikes the sand and instantly melts it. In less than a second, it fuses into glassy, hollow tubes, branching out and stretching meters underground like some weird electric tree root system carved in glass. And what's really cool is that tiny bubbles of air get trapped inside the glass as it forms. Scientists can study ancient fulgurites to understand what the Earth was like thousands of years ago. If platform shoes aren't your style, don't worry, you've got options. Well, an option. It involves willingly breaking your legs, inserting a metal rod, and then each day winding a little dial that lengthens them a millimeter at a time. It might sound extreme, but height surgery is the hottest new cosmetic craze. As you'd expect, the stories are terrifying. People report hearing bones crunch and crack, while others experience electric zaps as the nerves stretch and twist. And if you're wondering, the most popular height, that'd be 5'10". Have you ever heard of the Huldu folk? They're Iceland's mysterious invisible people who live inside rocks, hills, and lava fields. And it may sound like fantasy, but over half the population believe these hidden people actually exist. It dates back to ancient Norse mythology and early Christian folklore, and people say if you mess with their homes, like moving the rocks they're thought to live in. You'll be cursed with an eternity of bad luck. South Korea is home to some pretty weird stuff. Think cheese-flavored ice cream, kimchi-scented air fresheners, and yes, an entire theme park dedicated to toilets. It's called Mr. Toilet House, and it's the brainchild of Sim Jae-duck, former mayor and lifelong sanitation activist. Going by Mr. Toilet, Sim had a passion for public hygiene, so much so that in 2007 he demolished and rebuilt his own home in the shape of a giant white toilet. And today, visitors can explore the toilet-themed art installations and admire statues of people in awkward bathroom poses in what has to be one of the weirdest theme park experiences around. 1760s Scotland was a brutal time. The Highland Clearances saw thousands of Scots forcibly evicted by wealthy landowners who found sheep farming more profitable than collecting rent from farmers. Entire villages were burned, with families often given just hours to leave. Their eviction notices read out in Gaelic by English-speaking officials who didn't even know what they were saying. And with no other option, Highlanders were forced to flee the country on coffin ships, overcrowded cargo vessels where disease was rampant and only around 70% of passengers survived. In the 1950s, amid a wave of UFO hysteria, the US Air Force developed one of the strangest aircraft ever conceived, the Avro VZ-9 Avrocar. Shaped like a flying saucer, it measured 18 feet in diameter and was designed to reach speeds of 300 miles per hour. It was sold as a revolutionary military craft, but didn't quite reach the lofty heights they'd promised. Literally. The Avrocar could barely rise more than 3 feet off the ground, constantly overheated, and struggled to make it past 35 miles per hour. After a decade of failed attempts, the program was quietly scrapped. Another example of taxpayer dollars put to good use. The population of the City of London isn't as big as you may think. Despite over 500,000 people flooding in each day, fewer than 9,000 actually live there. That's mostly because it's a commercial district, packed with offices, not homes. And the homes that are there aren't cheap. If you have a few $1,000,000 sitting aside, sure, make it 9,001. Another round of 20 absurd facts done. Whether it's the people that sweat colours to the terrifying practice of transorbital lobotomies, let's hope you walk away thinking, man, they were some facts. Or don't walk away. Sit back and enjoy 20 more, just one click away. And as always, cheers for the support. I'll catch you next time.